Ready to go here. Okay. It's 6:30 and welcome to the Park and Rec Committee meeting of February 21st. We'll do a roll call. Start here.
Greg McCurry.
Larry Schultz.
Amanda Cahill.
Alyssa Swanson, Parks and Recreation Director, acting. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Connor McGuire. I'm a Boy Scout with Troop 330 and talk more about it in a little bit for you guys.
Okay. Before we go any further, I should announce that Jeanette June has submitted her resignation from our committee, and she's been a really good member of this committee, contributed a lot over the years, and we'll miss her on here, but like to publicly thank her for her service on this committee. So with that, we're going to skip the approval of the minutes as we don't have a quorum this evening. We'll carry those over till next time. So if you have some questions, make note of that. Next, we have a item. We want to talk about any petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints that you've heard from people in the community or you yourself would like to bring forward. Do we have any?
I do.
Okay.
I have some things. One thing that I saw is that there is it's openings right now for new committee members or applications, and then that there's a planned meeting for those candidates to go to the council workshop for that. What are our expectations, and then also because I haven't been on this side, so do we attend? Do we see those applications? All those type of things.
It's a great question, committee member and the rest of the committee. What we have historically done, since it is a council-determined committee, is that we receive any new applications, and council is the ultimate decision makers on those factors. So they review the applications themselves. Obviously, they have an interview process for any new committee members or potential committee members, and then they ask any questions that they find appropriate, and then they are the ones that appoint them. So in a short answer, no, there is no particular role that you need to be involved in for that, since it is more of a council level item.
Except welcoming the new members once they're appointed.
Absolutely.
And do you know if there's how much interest there's been yet, or no?
Yeah, there's two candidates that are new to the committee. Since none of that's been officially posted yet, I don't feel like I should make the announcement publicly, but the packet will come out on Friday, and I'd be happy to share that with you all, so then you just get an idea of who might be coming in the potentially sharing these seats with us, and maybe even welcome them if you know them or if they're a neighbor.
Great.
But yeah, so we have two new interested people.
Wonderful.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. I have another one. So my husband, Joe Cahill, attended the February 12th City Council workshop that focused on the Arboretum area transportation plan updates. So again, great future plans in place for the city, but it's still, I just want to mention it here because I think we should stay informed and involved in stuff. That he was a little disappointed that there was quite detailed plans laid out for pedestrian improvements and connections, trail connections to be made, but the Bavaria trail gap was still the little most vague in what they shared plans for that. And again, we realize there's so many factors and constituents in play with that trail, but just wanted to mention it because we're doing our best to stay informed, and that work is coming, and it's coming very quickly now. So,
I can speak to part of that. When that first came out, we had significant input initially in that. The plan was brought here, we discussed it. We were invited to the open house
yeah.
as well. So I think we've had some input. I think the Bavaria Trail piece, and Alyssa can chime in here, but I think part of that was we did have a grant to complete that, and that fell through because we were unable to get negotiate a right-of-way. And I know that kind of ended that, so I don't know exactly where that fell in the timeline of when we had reviewed things or not. I mean, certainly this committee's always been in favor of trail along Bavaria, and I know that there's been some discussion at different government levels about when there's improvement to that road, we might get it. But
Yep.
I don't know, Alyssa, if you have anything to add to that.
No, Chair, I think you summed it up very well. That specific trail it has its complexities, and we've run into those complexities in the past, actually pretty recent past, on making that trail connection work for us. But with the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan and a potential roundabout coming at 82nd Street and Bavaria Road, that is a county project, and they are looking at potential ways to increase trail connectivity throughout that space. So it is definitely on their radar. It's definitely on the city's radar when we're thinking about what is if we're doing construction in that area, how do we ensure that we're making less impact if we come and do construction later in the future. So those are all things that are at top of mind for us to see how much we can make work.
And I think it's probably okay to put in the minutes that it was brought up again here, and that that the committee, assuming unless somebody disagrees, continues to be interested in having that being one of our top priorities.
And just staying updated, because I felt like we are, informed, and then, had my husband not gone, we might not have, gathered as much information as was readily was available.
Could I make a suggestion for maybe a future agenda item, just to have maybe, I don't know if it's you or somebody, pull the map up and do a little, hey, here's where we're at. I mean, I went and looked at all the maps, but when there's these little missing pieces, maybe it'd be nice just to have that as a future just overview, or have whoever's leading the trail stuff at the city could give us just a little overview.
Yeah, and I do want to speak that the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan is not a city project, so there's limitations on communication, on what we as city staff feel comfortable sharing. Well, that workshop was a county workshop. They're the ones that bring those things to council. What I can do is definitely share with you the workshop link so you can watch it. If there are things that come up, I'd be happy to share that information. But for us leading any of those conversations or being directly involved in those conversations, we just want to make sure that the people that are leading the project are the ones that are bringing the information forward.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe you weren't here, but I know it was planned to have just a focused meeting with us, not on Arboretum Area Transportation Plan, but trails in general, at the beginning-ish time of this year.
That would be a good agenda item, especially as we'll have some new members that bring everybody up to date. Once that happens, that might be a good opportunity.
Even just a time to bring up the GIS map and say, highlight where the parks are, and what's a park and what's not, and what's just green space. And,
I also think it would be, not just bring it up, but just a review of what some of the hurdles are for some of those areas, because I know from a committee standpoint, and I'm guessing I don't want to speak for them, but I'm guessing from a council standpoint that we'd all like to have those all done, but there's reasons why they aren't. Cost is one of them, and there's also some geographical issues with some of them as well that increase cost more than others. But it would be a good review, I think, for its
Remember, we had an interested group come in and even speak to us that is disconnected from trails, and then we kind of went through that at a meeting. But there's more groups like that, including my neighborhood, who I get questions all the time of why we aren't connected in Lake Bridge to the trail, right? So, I mean, it's just good for us to be informed.
That is, I love that idea. I think, and you probably are all aware, in April, that's usually our annual orientation meeting. We go through usually how does the agenda look, and these meetings are recorded, so be prepared that your microphone is hot at pretty much all times, and just some of those small, housekeeping items. But I think what would be really good to add is maybe an overview. Let's talk about where our trail gaps are, why these are trail gaps, what we've done to improve these trail gaps, or research we've conducted on these. Where are our parks? Where are our open space? What are our priorities? I think that's definitely something we can do. It's a good refresher for all of us, and it will definitely help whoever is going to sit in these chairs next to us to be a good chair in the future.
Great.
Okay, any further comments?
I just have one for something for staff to look at. I needed to have a meeting at the rec center, so I went online to reserve the room off the front door. Said it was available. Then I got an email that it wasn't, and then when I got there, nobody was in it. So the front desk said, yeah, it wasn't reserved. So I think there's some breakdown in the online system that might be needed to look at.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Greg.
And it wasn't him at the front desk. It's okay.
Innocent.
And it's not their fault. I think there's some breakdown there and how that's working, or the availability.
And we're actually looking through those right now, because our program is actually more powerful than what we've allowed it to do. And currently we kind of, but we really want to put the power to the consumer and our residents, because we're on our phone and we're able to order things sitting here and they come within a couple of hours. So we want to be able to have that same level of service delivery for our residents. So we are really looking at utilizing the tool that we have in place. Civic Rec is what it's called. So people can check out rooms, check out park shelters, and not necessarily having to go through so many barriers and have to fill out multiple different forms to get there.
Yeah, and that, I don't think, it was simple to do. And then I got an email immediately the next day telling me it wasn't available, which is fine. I was like, okay, it's reserved. Then when I got there that night, it was dark. And then I asked the front desk if anybody had reserved it. And they said, oh no, there's nothing on the calendar. Like, okay. Well, I just thought I'd bring it up just as more of a process thing. There's something to look at.
There definitely is, and
We found a place to meet anyway, so we're okay.
Okay, other items. Thank you for that. Anything else? No. Okay, with that, we have a guest with us this evening. Well, what? I guess I'm jumping the gun here. We have an update first from Melissa.
Yeah. Just a few staff updates. I won't take very long, but I did want to give you an update on the Parks and Recreation Director position. I have enjoyed my time being here, but I'm sure you all are sick of seeing me month after month and are hoping that we actually have a full-time Parks and Recreation Director that's sitting at the helm and leading these meetings or being part of this meeting with you all. So just a position update. We are going to post the position probably within the next couple of weeks, so you'll see that come through, and hopefully we'll have somebody hired this spring yet. So just an FYI on that we're looking at getting that up and going. The next one, I just want to draw to your attention, I probably said it last meeting as well, but our Citizens Academy is coming up. Registration is open. It's a great opportunity to learn about the inner workings of city government, whether it's finance and budgeting. Obviously, we talked about parks and trails, but public works, how do we treat our water? How is road structures built? It definitely ranges from A to Z of city government. So if you're interested, please check out our website, or if you know of somebody that might be interested, it is a great adult educational program that we offer here, and it is free. The next one is open meeting law training. I sent that email out a while ago. It is March 18th. It will be held here at 5 p.m. It is mandatory for all new committee members or anyone that hasn't taken it yet. And it is actually a new program. We started it last year, since all committee meetings or committees and City Council have to abide by the rules of open meeting law and data practices through the state of Minnesota. So it's another similar to what we were talking about in April, having a refresher for us all to make sure that, what we can do if there's no quorum, how do we take meeting minutes or what's important in meeting minutes, making sure that we're not sending emails that we shouldn't be, so we're avoiding meeting contamination more or less. So it's a great training. If you're not able to come, please let us know in advance. Otherwise, it's right before our March meeting, so I hope y'all can attend. And the other piece I do want to note is we know it's back-to-back meetings for you all. It's going to be a 5 o'clock meeting that's probably going to take an hour with a half an hour in between. That doesn't give you a lot of time to go home or have a meal or find something to eat. So we are going to bring light refreshments just because we know that you might get hungry or it's just a nice to have.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just Election Day. Just an FYI that on March 5th is the presidential primary election. There's 5 different precincts in the city of Victoria, so if you haven't registered, please do, and please join us on Election Day to participate in that. We have our election boxes sitting in the conference room next door because we have public accuracy testing tomorrow, so you're more than welcome to join us for that too. But anyway, that is all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. There's no old business. New business is we have a guest tonight, and going to have a discussion about a Gaga pit. Alyssa, do you want to do the introduction?
I'll do the locations first.
Oh, no, you go ahead. Yes, sorry about that. Just getting our ducks in a row. But I would like to introduce Connor McGuire here. He is not only just a staff member at the City of Victoria working in our recreation department, but he's also a Boy Scout, and he is a Eagle Scout candidate interested in building a Gaga pit or Gaga ball pit within the City of Victoria. And I'll let him introduce the sport of Gaga ball to you all and talk a little bit more about his project. But if you want to start with anything else, the only request I have is speak into the microphone.
Yeah. So we'll just start with a little bit about me and my career in scouting. So I joined the Scouts as a Cub Scout in kindergarten, so I've been involved in scouting for the past more than 10 years of my life. It's been just a really meaningful thing to me. It's kind of helped me grow as a person over the years. So just some of the most influential experiences I've had is I've had the opportunity to go on 3 Boy Scout high adventure camps, so those are considered the best of the best. So in 2021, my troop went down to Florida for a trip at Sea Base where you stay out on an island for a couple nights. Summer of 2022, we went to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico, and that's one where you go hiking for 12 days out in the mountains. And then this summer, we went up to the Boundary Waters and stayed in Northern Tier, where you canoe from site to site. And they've kind of just helped me grow. They've been really meaningful experiences for me and truly unforgettable that have just left a big impact on my life. And now I'm moving through the ranks. I'm currently a Life Scout, which is the second to last rank in scouting. And of course, one of the major parts of moving up to Eagle is the Eagle Scout Project, which is going to be the Gaga Ball Pit. And so I've just got a short little video here to show you guys of just what the game looks like. So essentially how it works is there's a big pit and a rubber ball similar to what you use for kickball. And the goal is to hit the ball and hit your opponents below the knees. So when you get out, which is what happens when you get hit in the legs, you jump out of the pit and the last person standing is the winner. And I chose this project just because Gaga Ball as a whole is just a very prominent part of scouting. Any summer camp you go to, there's always going to be Gaga Ball going on. It's very popular. Outside of scouting as well, it's just becoming an increasingly popular game. For example, at Pioneer Ridge, I believe, yes, it's Pioneer Ridge. So at Pioneer Ridge, there's a Gaga Ball pit set up outside the main entrance. And it's a pretty popular thing. They're popping up everywhere. Yeah, so 1 second. There we go. So some of the plans for this project, it's a fairly low budget one, which I'll cover later as well. So there's a couple different options we have. So there's a 15-foot one, and that's going to be a hexagon shape. 20 feet is the most common one, and that's going to be an octagon. That's what you can see up here. That's the most common form of a Gaga ball pit that you'll see. And then there's also a 26-foot, and that's the diameter. And that one's, I'm not even sure how many, that's a very large one. And so on the left, you can see here just a photo of an example of what the sides would look like. So it's just going to be a 2x8 board and then 8 feet long on each side for the 20-foot one. And then that's just going to be held together. And as you can see right here as well, so this one here with the cutout, you can also see it up here. That's the door to get in, or the door. So you jump over that and get in, and that's where you hop out when you're knocked out of the game as well. And then another possibility that we could include in this project that will increase the cost but make it more accessible is an ADA doorway for disabled people to get in. Just some more options here. Again, here's the doorway. So it slides open, and then will be some sort of a locking mechanism there. We also have two different options for the brackets to hold the boards together. So the first option is they do make brackets specifically for Gaga ball pits that are meant to line up exactly, but those can get very pricey. An alternative option, though, is to use door hinges, which are going to be significantly cheaper, but they're going to make the structure less sound. It's not going to be quite as held together as well. And then another option we could consider is if we want to make this a permanent fixture. Down here in the bottom, you can see there are these are anchors that you can help use to mount it into the ground. It should be pretty heavy and weighed down anyways, but just for added security, this would tack on a little extra cost. So here we have the budget. So the wooden screws in total is going to add up to about $275. It's about $225 for the wood and $50-ish for the screws, give or take. And then, as I mentioned before, if you were to just do door hinges, which is going to be the cheaper option, but not as structurally sound option, that's going to add up to about $30. And then alternatively, there's the official brackets, which are going to significantly increase the price, but they're going to make it look a lot cleaner, a lot nicer, and also more stable. It's the best option I could find for a disabled accessible doorway is going to be about $400 because they're very tailor-made for Gaga ball pits specifically, so it would be very difficult to fashion one on our own without buying that one separately. Another option to consider that's not too expensive of an add-on is just a coat of paint. 1 gallon of paint, maybe 2 should be enough to cover the entire structure. And then the anchors, as I mentioned before, 8 of them to secure each corner would total up to about $100. So there's a very wide range for the total. So it could be as low as $450, or if we wanted to make it really accessible and sleek, it would go upwards of $1,200.
Connor, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
What in all the examples, there's different base, like floor, or what is like the most like what have you seen, or what are you thinking about for the base?
So where I've played it, it's generally just been some sort of a flat surface. So if it were to be built on even just grassy ground, if you just dug it up a little bit, kind of scuffed it up so it's dirt more than grass, that's what I see most commonly, because the whole point is to hit the ball so it rolls on the ground, so you kind of want it to be like stable, so it'll roll smoothly and allow it to move quickly. The city's also proposed pea gravel or wood chips, I believe. So depending on where we were, I think that the wood chips, or I don't know, either one, just something soft, because from my experience, it can get pretty rough. The kids get really into it, and there's going to be tripping and falling and diving. So some sort of soft terrain that's still smooth enough for the ball to roll across. So depending on what the locations are, even if it's just on a grassy area, I don't think we would necessarily need to do anything with the ground.
Okay.
We may be able to leave it as is. And then here's the time frame. So this project could go relatively quickly. It's not a super intensive work of labor. So ideally, we would be able to finalize the location and the layout for the pit by the middle of March. And then we can also discuss funding for the project, depending on if the city would be able to contribute. I can also raise funds and help with that as well. So I'd likely start with that late March, early April, sometime around then. Construction would probably start mid to late April once the weather permits and we have everything set in stone. And then the only really hard deadline here is completing the project before May 28th. That's the Boy Scouts, Eagle Scout Court of Honor for my troop, and otherwise they tax on a whole bunch of expenses for me and for our troop. So if we could finish it before then, it shouldn't be too difficult. I don't believe construction will take too long for it. Maybe a day for painting and then 2 days for construction. Yeah, so that's about all I have. Does anybody have any other questions?
Questions for Connor?
Do you anticipate, just because I don't know how the process works, do you anticipate building this all by yourself? Like, is that part of the project, or does your troop help?
So, yeah, so the city wouldn't need to provide stuff. I cover that, so I get friends, fellow scouts, basically anybody I need. So it is a community effort, but that would not need to be organized by the city. I'll take care of that with my troop. So, yeah.
Okay, this is a question for Alyssa. The funding, do you have any thoughts on how we would go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chair, committee members. So first, I want to talk about the material, the grounding, because I know that came up. From our perspective, we talked about it internally. We would recommend going with some sort of material, and what we proposed was wood chips or pea gravel, because that's typically what we already use. The reason for that is because of maintenance versus grass, where we would have to bring something in there and do weed whipping, and we would just prefer to at least try and alleviate as much of that as possible. Obviously, there's always weeding, but we would try and avoid that. But to get into the cost piece, we do have funds in our budget for some sort of cost share, so we would have to work and see out of the list that Connor has provided us what would be the best for us. There are some things that we would like to see just on a standard structure level when it comes to reliability, making sure that it's going to be sturdy. The anchors are a great suggestion, things like that. The other one, like the ADA door, would be a great addition for us. What came from our survey and the city council workshop related to our parks is having ADA accessible recreation structures throughout our entire park system. So making sure that we're able to sprinkle that through our park areas. I think this is an important one for us. So we would have to just look at what we have and make recommendations from there.
Okay, good. I would agree that if we're going to do this, we should do it right. And, I think even the structure too, I mean, instead of using door hinges, do it right the first time. And the ADA thing, I think, is a must too. I would highly recommend that that be included. Other comments from anybody?
Do you have a preferred location in mind? Have you driven around our city, looked at the various parks and locations?
I mean, I know the city had 2 locations in mind. If we had space, I think that it would make sense I just don't believe we have the space to put it outside the playground by the recreation center. That's a pretty common gathering spot for families. But if you do want to go over the locations now,
Sure, go through
the alternate
that.
options.
was a really good presentation, Connor.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that together. Good job.
There we go. Perfect. So we do have two potential options for the committee to consider. And I want to start by, we have labeled these option 1 and option 2. These are not ranked. We both think these are great options for us to place a Gaga ball pit. The first one is Rhapsody Park. It's about a 3.5 acre park. It includes parking, trail access. It's what we term as a larger neighborhood park. Larger neighborhood parks not only have the community assets that a stereotypical neighborhood would like to see, like some of our smaller neighborhood parks. Savannah Valley is a great example, has a playground, trail access, but it has additional amenities that drives the larger community to that location. For this specific spot, the ball field, we have a lot of programming, t-ball, coach pitch that comes there, as well as the park shelter, which is regularly rented out or utilized by the public. Because of that, we see a lot of parents bringing their children, older siblings attending their younger siblings' games, or having something like a Gaga ball pit would be a great amenity and another entertainment source, another recreation source for some of that older to teenage age youth that we sometimes really struggle at reaching. The other piece to this is we wanted to ensure that there was parking. Since this is this is going to be a new amenity for us, and we know that there's high demand for Gaga pits. We wanted to be aware that if this is the only one in our city, or the first one in our city, that we had accessible parking for people to come and visit. The second one, and for similar reasons, is Laketown Park. This is a larger park, but it has similar amenities. It is that larger neighborhood park. It has the playgrounds, it has trail access, it has parking. The one difference between this and Rhapsody is it has a larger, probably, draw because it has 2 soccer fields and 2 ball fields. The other ball field is off the screen here to the bottom right, but you do have a large number of sporting events that happen for youth. So again, you're seeing families, you're seeing siblings that come and attend these events, that having this additional amenity might be a nice to have. The one caveat to this space is that it is adjacent to Victoria Elementary. We do have a call in with the principal and to their dean to talk about if having a Gaga ball pit adjacent to their space is going to cause any problems, or they see any concerns with that. They haven't responded to quite yet. I know that they've been discussing it because in schools sometimes that becomes too much, or they don't want to have kids asking if they can go play outside of school grounds. So we just wanted to be really cautious and talk to our neighbors before we offer this as a set location.
If I could add something for that as well. Another one of my fellow scouts in my troop I know was discussing something similar along the lines of a Gaga ball pit, and I know he has kind of started to get in contact with Victoria Elementary, so I can communicate with him, confirm, see if that's what he's going to do or not, but I think that would most likely take this option off the table if he were to go through with that plan, because having 2 in that close proximity doesn't seem like the best idea.
Okay, other comments, questions? So,
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys, so my girls attend Victoria, so when you talk about like that they might not be allowed to go off school property, so if you look in this picture, the upper playground is the school's playground right next to the building, and so sometimes when they don't have enough teacher supervision or aides, lunch aides, like they're not allowed to go down to this lower Laketown Park during the school day. So where, if this is a city, if this is placed in Laketown Park, Alyssa, and it's a city Gaga ball pit and not a school ball pit, where are you looking at in here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that goes to both. When it comes to the actual location, we haven't quite determined where
Okay.
that would be yet. We would most likely rely on our maintenance crew to really determine what's going to be the best spot for their team to be able to mow around this and really make sure that they're able to provide a high level of maintenance to these areas. Obviously, we want it close to our other amenities as well. We don't want it in Timbuktu, more or less. So making sure that it's in a proper location would be our next step as soon as a park is identified.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I don't think there's a need for any action tonight, other than maybe just a general consensus of this is something that would be of interest to us and to the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I see people shaking their heads affirmatively, so I guess we'll let city staff continue to work with Connor and maybe at the next meeting, bring us an update of where we are.
That I can do.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thanks, Connor.
Wonderful.
All right, with that, there's no other items on our agenda, so guess a motion would be in order.
Well, do we need
adjourn.
to motion since we're not?
You can just do it
Well,
for
It's
We'll just,
off on circumstance.
I'll move, you can second.
and I'll pound the gavel.
There we go.
Done.
Easy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
7:06, perfect.